My name is Ariel. I am a former high school assistant principal, district specialist, and now I have the privilege of working as an education consultant where I support district leaders throughout the United States and state level leaders as well. So when did I first experience loss in the workplace? I was a whopping 25 years old and I was in my third year of teaching. Just a quick overview, if you are doing lateral entry at the time to become a teacher, which means I did not graduate college with a teaching certificate, I was working and obtaining my teaching certificate at the same time. So you have 3 years to meet certain marks on your observations and also to finish any coursework. So year 3 is a big year. This also happened to be the year that my father passed. So remember the 9th of November. It was November 9th, 2014. I will never forget this. And he had went in the night before, wasn't feeling well. They ran some routine tests. My mom was there with him until about 9 when she went home because they wouldn't let her stay overnight. So imagine my surprise on the 9th when my godmother is calling me from the hospital and she's giving me a play-by-play and letting me know my dad's having some issues, and I am still very confused and still very much so teaching. So I had 10th grade English 2, I will never forget. I had a co-teacher in first block, and thank God for her because she was able to stay in with my students as I went in and out to figure out what the heck is going on. And I remember my godmother having to convince me to leave work. I was not leaving. And we could go down a rabbit hole as to all the reasons why. Part of it being denial. I felt like if I left, it would make it too real that my dad is really in the hospital and he's really not doing well. So I remember I stayed and I got a phone call that I immediately knew I gotta go. She said, "Baby, and if you are from the South, Texas specifically, what I'm thinking of, my godmother was also born and raised in Louisiana but lived in Texas. That baby hits different when you're from the South." And I remember the way she said it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta go. And at that point, I had still not heard from my mother, so I've just been talking back and forth with my godmother. And I knew I gotta go home. And even leaving to check on my father, leaving the school building, I felt so guilty. Anxiety, everything was a blur driving from the school to my apartment. It was approximately 20 minutes, but it was 20 minutes that felt like an hour. And I can't even really tell you what I was thinking. I just remember there being lots of tears. And I get home, throw some stuff in the bag, have no idea what I packed. Walk out the door. As I'm locking the door, my godmother calls back and lets me know he didn't make it. Fast forward, I was only out for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I was out of work for 2 weeks. This is why leading in loss is needed. We need communities. We need people who have experienced what we're going through for the first time to be able to tell us, hey, you might want to take some more time. You might want to consider giving yourself a moment to bounce back. But at that time, I did not have that. What I did have was about 150 English 2 students that I felt like needed me more than I needed myself. Coupled with a teacher observation 2 days after I returned from burying my father. And this was my 3rd year, which meant I needed to get all amazing ratings in order to get my teaching license, right? Thankfully, I had a principal who definitely cared about the well-being of his staff, professionally and personally. And I went and talked with him and we worked things out and I was able to redo my evaluation. Of course, much better ratings. But this first incident with loss at work is what made me begin to realize how much we need leaders who are informed, who have empathy, who understand grief and loss. Because from that point on, as I continued to experience loss, I was also furthering myself in my career, in my leadership journey, and it was hard. This day felt like the hardest day of my life. I had no idea it could get harder. So if this resonates with you, if you have experienced something like this, click the link in the bio. I want to hear from you. Share your information, your name, your email address, so we can be in touch. At Leading in Loss, we're going to offer several different services, one of them being one-on-one coaching. So much like my story, if you have or are experiencing that, I would love to help support you. Whether you're still in the classroom or already a leader, I would love to be there. One thing that I realized on my own personal journey is that there is a huge gap between leadership and loss. So even as we are progressing as leaders, as we're leading other adults, there is not a lot of support for how grief impacts our professional growth and development. On the other side of that, as someone who is and was in counseling and therapy, I felt like my counselor, my therapist could not provide me much guidance on the professional side. So there I lay in the middle, an aspiring leader experiencing immense loss with nowhere to turn to help further my career or my healing process. I would love to be that for you. And I am sure there's a community of other leaders that are experiencing loss and grief right now that would also like to be there for you. So please join us. Click the link in the bio.